then. Hello there, it's Matthew here with another episode of Brushes and Battles, and I don't need to introduce this fine gentleman here. You'll be able to tell him straight away by his face. It's Mr. Duncan Rhodes. Duncan, how are we?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Having a nice Thursday afternoon, and my dog Spot's finally gone to sleep. He's down there on the little pillow next to me, so all is good.
In it, great stuff. Oh, I'm just going to quickly close my window because in true Manchester fashion, it's just started to whip up a storm, and I've got some just freshly primed minis
There they
there.
are. Are
Uh,
those old Space Marine scouts? And
they are.
yeah, an old orc, and that's a rogue trader Space Marine there as well, isn't it?
It is.
Beaky, look at that.
Mm. Just
Yeah.
bought a few random bits and pieces to practice off on eBay. I actually got them really cheap as well, and I was like,
Oh yeah.
"Do I really want to take a brush to these while I'm still learning?" But I watched your video on the Duncan Rhodes Paint Academy of when you got is the anniversary of 40K 35th anniversary, and you had
Mm.
the RTBO1s
Yes,
out, and it's like,
RTBO1. Yeah, yeah. My friend Jim had a load, and he gave us a box with all these figures in, and yeah, that was fun to paint one of those.
yeah,
They've changed quite a bit since then, but you can still see at the core formula, it's similar basic
mm,
identity. And it's quite fun to see how much things have changed across the years.
yeah, it was lovely. And also, where did you get that unopened bottle of paint from as well?
Oh, this was the Blood Angels Red.
Yeah.
Let me think. I think that one was one that we just bought off eBay. I think. So we have a Goblin Green as well, and that was sent to us from one of our viewers.
Mm.
But yeah, I think if I remember correctly, the red we just bought off eBay. Quite rare, still to have its little, sealed tag on there. Way more orange than I remember it being as well.
Yeah. Is it like deserves like when you have go out to friends, it's like, well, I've got this bottle of whiskey and we only break out on special
Yes,
occasions.
on special. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You get
I
the
bring out
the old
this.
stuff, the good stuff.
Yeah. When I have my old when I have the old crew round, we break it
Yeah.
out. It's brilliant. And so I want to just like step back a bit in time. I tried my best to try and think of some stuff that maybe because you are quite a well-known person, you've done interviews before, to try and think of stuff that you probably necessarily haven't been asked before. But
Mhm.
I'm going to start off with
Should be interesting.
the usual stuff of what was young Duncan Rhodes like?
Oh, now that is a question I've not been asked before. A young Duncan Rhodes was very shy and self-conscious, I think, is fair to say. I've never really been entirely comfortable being the center of attention. I tend to be, oh, I am an introvert. And when I was young, I was really scared of public speaking, and I was very much quite happy to blend into the background of things. Um, I've had to learn to adapt to it with the TV stuff because all the um, attention, I suppose you could say, that came off the back of it was an unexpected side effect of it all. But yeah, I think if I told the 11 or 12-year-old me when he was first getting into this hobby how things were going to go, I think he'd be terrified.
That's interesting. So, how do you then sort of process what you're about to do with you? Do you have any sort of like ritual to, or do you sort of block it out and think, do you know what, I'm just talking to a camera, and then away we go? Because I can imagine that being quite a challenging thing to do,
Mm.
especially like with your, you said then like you were sort of shot into the celebrity in the
Mm.
painting sort of forefront.
Well, I don't really have any ritual or anything I do nowadays. When I started doing it at Games Workshop, I definitely would get nervous before, it all like a shoot began. But because you realize after a little bit it's not live, which means if you make a mistake, it's not a problem. It can always be reshot. Um, Early on, I just avoided seeing how people reacted to it. And the people I was working with, so Roger in particular, he would kind of check to see what was being said and take on the feedback from there and pass things on to me. But then it was almost universally positive. So I kind of got over that fear. Um, and I think I've just learned to adapt to it now. It's a bit like learning to drive a car, I think, and doing it in the sort of like when we drive a car at first, I was super nervous about doing that. But after you do it enough times, it just becomes a normal thing. So when I'm talking to the camera, I don't really think of talking about a massive audience or anything like that. I really just think of it as talking to one person who I'm trying to help out, and just think of it as one viewer. And I find that that helps. Um, and I find it also helps me keep my feet on the ground because I think the attention I get off the back of this, it could easily go to your head, and I really don't want it to do that. So I'm very much sure that it's a result of being in the right place at the right time. And I think when opportunities come along, you got to grab them, and, do your best with them. But I do think I am lucky to be in the place where I am. I don't want to take it for granted, and I don't want to assume it's something that's deserved or anything like that. Yeah, I I really don't like arrogance as a trait, So I really don't want to become that sort of person.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's good that you managed to keep yourself grounded because, like I said, then it could be. We see it in a few cases where you see someone go from humble beginnings to it all
Mm,
go into the head and the ego takes over. But
mm.
yeah, it's great that you're still grounded and still Duncan from the block.
I
I
try. I try.
mean, not
If it
what an
ever does go
awful
to
thing
my
to say.
head, everyone's invited to kick my ass. All right.
So, were you quite an arty and creative kid as well, or
Mm.
mm,
Yeah, I always used to be into creative things and making stuff. I really liked Lego when I was little, and always make custom things. And I think this somewhat runs in my family because my granddad was into model making for these model trains. He'd make them out of brass etch and he'd solder them all together and stuff. And I always found that absolutely fascinating to see how he made these things. Um, but I would make things out of cardboard, like little tanks, trains, cars, anything like that. And it then very easily settled with me when I first encountered things like Warhammer. So we're doing model airplanes and stuff, and really I encountered Warhammer by accident in a model shop, and they caught my eye because I got into sci-fi maybe a year and a half or 2 years before through Star Wars, and it looked like a Space Marine was a combination of a whole bunch of things that I thought were awesome.
mm,
And so then the fact that I paint them myself and I get to pose them myself and I'm trying to build an army and all the units do different things and it's up to you to work out what things to have and then you've actually got this strategic game against them. All these things really, really sang to me. So um, it appealed right from the start and it's never really let go. It's yeah. As far as arty goes, I like drawing and stuff. Well, I liked drawing, but I wasn't particularly good at it. I was more um, good at doing a technical drawing. So if I was working in my design technology class and I was having to do an illustration of like I don't know, a wardrobe or something like that, I was very good at drawing a direct thing with correct measurements and angles and stuff. When it came to a more artistic drawing, I wasn't so good at that. So I couldn't draw a face, for example. So yeah, I suppose quite particular things is how I was.
yeah. So when you started buying the models for Warhammer, did
Hmm.
you just buy them to paint and to play with, or did you rope some friends in to try and get a games night sorted?
I tried to get my friends into it. They didn't really bite though. There was one guy who did for a little while, but he didn't wasn't really his thing. He moved on to computer games and stuff. Um, but what I would do, I think a lot of people do this. I'd collect and paint my army with an eye towards playing a game, and I'd work out the points and I'd plan what was going to be in my force. But I'd never actually really play it. I mean, I'd play it occasionally against my dad, but again, I think he was doing it more just to spend time with me rather than being directly into it. Um, and yeah, it was quite later on then. It was actually when I joined Games Workshop Retail that I actually started playing it. Up till then, it wasn't really. It was always. I think I'll do that one day, and then it was quite a big moment when I finally did play the game. Like, oh God, what do I do? It's like a panic moment. I was trying to figure out how, like, trying to remember the rules I've been reading for years and years and years.
Yeah. Are you played anything at the moment, or are you not?
At the moment, I'm all about the old world. Is the thing I've been doing. That's the most recent project. But I always have a whole bunch of projects on the go and lots of things pulling my attention. So I've been painting Bretonians for that because Bretonians have been like my favorite faction for a long time. Um, and so it's cool to see them come back, and I've got to obviously indulge in that. But there's lots of other things. There's an Elder Scrolls video. Well, there is an Elder Scrolls video game, but there's a war game based on it that Modiphius make, and I really like that. And I got
Really?
to get back. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. All Skyrim
I had
stuff.
no idea.
Yeah,
I
yeah. It's
love
called
Skyrim.
Really,
Yeah.
it's called Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, and it's all based around Skyrim, but they've been very clear that they want to expand to the other games. And the factions are all the things from the game. So you can be adventurers, with the Dragonborn, you can make your own Dragonborn. But then you have things like the Empire as a faction with all their soldiers. You've got the Stormcloaks, you've got the Thieves, you've got the Dark Brotherhood, you've got the constructs, the dwarven constructs in the mines and things. There's
Yeah.
loads and loads of factions. It's bit more in line of like a role-playing game style game. So
Yeah.
you can just set up two factions and have at it, but during the course of the game, there'll be random events happen. Like like magic can go strange, or there can be a blizzard, or you can have a thief come along and steal your items, or you open a chest and you get new magic items. So there's lots of things like that, and I really like that. So yeah, I've got quite a collection of those models, and they've been bringing out some new stuff recently, so that keeps catching my eye. Um, there's a game called Conquest as well, by a company called Parabellum, this Greek company, and their stuff is like a rank and file game like Warhammer,
Yeah.
but it's their own twist and their own fantasy world. It's quite a dark fantasy world, and it's a larger scale as well, making it quite distinctive. And they've got some really fascinating factions. Like their version of orcs are very much like a kind of Stone Age tribe or Aztec tribe, and it really appeals to me with the colors of the feathers on them and stuff. I think over time I found that I prefer fantasy games to science fiction. So there's lots of these. Oh, and also the Perrys have brought out a bunch of new Napoleonic tropes, and I am a sucker for Napoleonic stuff. Some Duchy of Warsaw stuff, and I've been wanting to do a Polish army for ages, so that's appealing. I have a lot of things always dragging my attention all over the place, and so I really get stuff finished. Not my proudest trait, but there it is.
I don't see your pile of shame. I'm like down to my last model as well.
Really?
Yeah, and
Oh,
it's prime them
oh my
free.
goodness. You've got to buy some stuff before you finish that. No one knows what
Well,
happens if you've finished all your models.
true. I probably like end the universe or something like some sort of
Yeah, it
weird
might be that.
paradox.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
just finished off my Scave and Blood Bowl team
Mm.
very poorly. I redid them twice, and I've got my score in True Blades
Hmm.
for the Warcry ones.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm
One of the war bands. Yeah.
yeah, I'm really enjoying painting those as well. I've been painting for about 2 weeks, just like taking my time with each model and just really enjoying the process of it. Yeah, they're really nice figures, really nice
Hmm.
models. Yeah, I do
Hmm.
like them. How did
Yeah.
you feel when you heard the Bretonians were coming back into it?
Very complicated feelings. Oh, it's a big story. So my time in workshop, I was in the design studio for a number of years before I moved into TV.
Yeah,
And as I was leaving it, that was around about the time when the End Times project was happening, and they were going to start Age of Sigmar, and all was very hush hush and secretive. Um, and time before that, I had known that the new Bretonian book for the eighth edition of Warhammer Fantasy was being prepared, and I was lucky enough to be invited to one of the kickoff meetings for it as just kind of a fan of the faction, um, rather than like I wasn't sculpting anything or anything like that. Just like someone to like, oh, I think these things are cool, and this is the feel of what appeals to me about it, and why I think this faction is special. Um, and I heard all the ideas and things that they were going to do and stuff. So that was exciting. But then it became very clear that the old world was going to finish, and that was quite a disappointing thing. And I learned then that you have, and it's going to be the same in every company. You have almost like a political wind of what's popular and what's not, and what direction the company's going. And at that point, because everyone wants to be on in the back of Age of Sigmar and promoting that and being really positive about that, Warhammer was very much like, yeah, well, it's not really worked out. People aren't really into it, so you probably shouldn't. And it was all sort of, what's the word, downplayed. And I remember hearing things like, Bretonians aren't really Warhammer, are they? They're not really a proper Warhammer army and stuff. And I found this all really weird, and I didn't get it at the time. I get it now as to what actually was going on. And I know that people who were saying that they didn't actually think it, but they were trying to encourage positivity about the old world, about the Age of Sigmar, sorry.
mm,
So it was, I get why that was, but as a fan of that faction, I found it quite hard to swallow. And so I just, when the last chance to buy came along, I bought loads, and I've just been enjoying them in my own way ever since. Um, since they suddenly reappeared, first time a Warhammer community posted an article with artwork on it, I just burst out laughing because I've been saying to people like at Adepticon and things like, I bet you within 10 years, Forge World is going to do Warhammer Fantasy. What it will look like, I don't know, but I bet you. And then it turns out they did it in like 8. So, and Bretonian's one of the main factions for it. And like at the moment, if you go to a Warhammer community, the Warhammer main website, they're on the front page of it being advertised. And I find it really hard trying to square this circle because I'm still like, yeah, but it was off message to be into them and not to be all like Age of Sigmar's better. You know what I mean?
mm.
Um, and so now they're all over the place. They're really weird. And I think the moral of the story is whenever Games Workshop says we're never going to do this thing again, you can just ignore what they've said because when a few select pieces change within the business, those things will come back again. And I
Yeah.
realize the same things happened for things like Space Hulk, right? And for Necromunda, and for Epic, and for Adept Titanicus, and for Blood Bowl. And then factions that will never do, like Kroot. Who cares about Kroot? No one's interested. Oh, now there's an army box of Kroot on the way. So Old World is no different. So, anyone who's into it and is disappointed because their faction's like a main faction of it, I'd point to the lessons shown there that, if you're really into your Dark Elves, it doesn't mean the Dark Elves aren't ever going to be in it. They might say we'll never do Dark Elves, but give it 5 years and you never know what's going to happen. So,
Start
but
saving now.
yeah, exactly. But in summary, I find it super surreal, but I'm loving it. I
That's
feel
brilliant.
vindication, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do wait until you left.
They probably did. Well, actually, they announced the Square Base thing, the very first one, on my last day, and no one knew what was going on. And I was like, oh, big, like, whoa! And it's been 4 years since then until it
Yeah.
actually came out. So it was a long time, but yeah, that was quite a moment.
Brilliant. Was it a difficult decision to make to leave Games Workshop?
Oh yeah, it really was. There was lots of things in play, as to at the time, and you know where I wanted my career to go and all this sort of thing. And the key thing came down to it was that I worked with this guy called Roger, and I still do. And we've been together making the painting videos since the start of them, really. He was the first guy in the TV department, and he got me in as his presenter as he was pushing the idea of painting tutorials. So he did all the training with me, and he worked out the camera angles and the lighting and things like that. And we both shared a very similar vision with it, meaning that we got on really well. And we were really close friends these days. We went through all sorts of tough times together, just being on our own in a soundproof room, working on a project that at the time not many people really believed in until it really got going. Um, and Roger has always had a dream of having his own business. And we realized we're at a point where we had the reach and the money and the skills to be able to have a go of it. And the convincing argument for it, which has been a convincing argument for a whole load of things that I've ended up doing throughout life, is that if you don't try it, you may then regret it, and you want to try and live without regrets, right? So I
Yeah.
don't, and even taking the TV job in the first place, I was quite comfortable doing what I was doing in the studio, and it was scary to be walking away from that. And at the time, people around me were saying it's a bad idea, it's not going to go anywhere. But the friends who I carpooled with told them about it on the way home one evening, and they said, "You've got to do it because if you don't, and someone else does it, and it takes off, you'll always know that that could have been you." And it's very true. So this is the same thing that came up about, leaving workshop. We realized we had these opportunities to achieve this dream and chart our own way and do our own thing. And we were like, well, let's do it and not regret wishing we tried it many years from now. And
Yeah.
it's paid off. But it was terrifying because when we were doing it, we didn't know if it was going to work. We didn't know if the audience would come with us. We didn't know if we'd make enough money to make a living. We'd budgeted for about 6 months of not taking a wage. And at that point, things would be getting little bit, you know,
Yeah.
scary. But thankfully, our members came along and joined up and support us, and we're doing fine.
Brilliant. That's great to hear. At what point in that journey then did the paints come into it, the two thin coats?
Well, the paints came in. We were approached in, when was it? I think it was towards the end of 2020. It might have been early 2021. We got a message out of the blue from a chap who we had spoken to. His name's Bob, and he was at the time involved in a bunch of other projects. But his career has been one of those guys who's always like in a senior position in the industry, and he's done loads of things in the wargaming industry. And he was setting up his own company, and he wanted to license our brand to make a range of paints. So we didn't expect anything like that to happen. It's just the opportunity suddenly appeared one day when he approached about it. And we said, that's really cool. There's like a proper presentation pack. He sent us through the post and everything. It was really cool. And we were like, this sounds great, but what we'd like to do, rather than these proposals for like a random selection of colors and things, we'd like to have a triad system in there so it's easier for people to learn and things. And a lot of the lens in which we view what we do is always about trying to break down barriers and help people gain confidence in the hobby. So we wanted to arrange a condition of doing this range was to arrange it in such a way that it would make it accessible to new people as much as possible. And he practically bit our hand off. And as it turns out, what he really wants to do is make our perfect paint, as good as it could be for how we would like paints to be. And he kept away any sort of financial constraints from us, and essentially allowed us to choose things all the way through. So I was presented with a whole host of bases. I got to pick what I wanted. The colors were ones that we proposed. The original range of 60 were all our choices. And at first it was going to be 48, but we felt 60 would be a more rounded range, and he was cool with that. And he let us. So it was great because he let us have that creative freedom,
Yeah.
and let the project be honest, about what
Mm.
the product was like. So yeah, it just sort of happened, but it's all worked out really well, because Transatlantic Games, Bob's company, Transatlantic Games, have just been wonderful in that support. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
It was
I'm
certainly never planned.
Yeah, it's I've been really impressed with him. This is not like a paid promotion, nothing for anyone that's listening, but like when you said
Yes.
then about it being a really good way to learn, I was very much a case of base coating and then just a bit of a wash over it. And I
Mm,
wasn't really comfortable with shades and layers.
mm.
And then when I got the Age of Sigmar starter box to play with my son and just to have some practice models, I went and bought the triage of
Ah, yes, yes.
for the orcs, and I was like, right, well, if I'm going to learn, I'm going to learn now.
Mm,
I'm going to start. So I do love the orc hide, and yeah,
yes.
I love it. And Troll's not green, they're
Hmm.
just really good. I've not really used the goblinoid green that much because of the state the models, but like you said, that they are a really good set of paints to learn with because you've
Mm,
got the three stages, and the quality of them is like exceptional. I
mm.
love them. It's they're quickly becoming some of my favorite paints to use.
No, I'm glad to hear that. Well, it's like that because Tag have been so accommodating for things. Because, like I say, I was presented with a number of bases for the paints, which we labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on. And I just got to pick the ones that I liked the most, and then the color was added to it, and then that causes complexity. So there's a lot of work getting it all to work, but there was no compromise on quality ingredients that go into it. And when it comes to paint, you do get what you pay for. Um, so we didn't have to worry about an enormous margin or anything like that. And it shows when you're using it because it's just got such a nice pigment load, and it just covers really nicely.
Yeah.
What I mean? It's very silky smooth, isn't it? 'Cause it's got so
Mhm.
much leveling agent in it. Um, and yeah, so I was really glad for that. Not least because my name's on the side of the thing. They're going to read rubbish and be coming back on me.
Yeah.
But but I'm really glad you say that. I'm really glad you're finding it so good to
Mm.
learn how to work, because having that high quality means it's easy to actually use the stuff. But then putting it in that tried system means you can see where to go for your options when you put in your colors. And then once you've got that in your head, the world's your oyster because you can mix and match as much as you like.
Indeed. I need
Yeah.
2 liters of it now so I can paint this office. So I don't like I'm being held
Paint the
hostage
walls
somewhere. Yeah. That's a
green
lovely
walls.
color. What is it? Oh, it's goblinoid green. Where'd you get it from? Was
Yeah.
it being cube? No. No. Going from Element Games. Um the first Kickstarter for it,
Mm.
it raised over it was over $1 million.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how much of a mind blower was that? I mean, were you expecting that level of support from the community?
Oh goodness, no, no. We had our stretch goals ran out at I think it was 450,000, and before it went live, we were like, "Oh, do you think we might make that? I don't know. It's quite high, and you just don't know." Even with leaving workshop when it was about to go, you don't know what's going to happen. But it's easy in hindsight to look back at it and go, "Oh, of course it was going to make 1 million," but we had no idea. We were like thinking, "God, I hope this actually hits its funding goal. Because if it doesn't, that's going to be quite embarrassing." But yeah, people really took to it, and it was really humbling to see people reasoning as to why they were backing it too. I saw a lot of talk online that people had learned to paint from watching our content and wanted to support it and see us do well, and they were trusting that we weren't being dishonest about what we'd made. Um, so it was a really incredible sequence of events. Really, it was amazing just watching it launch, and we all sat around the computer. And you could just see the number going up and up and up. And we were like phoning our parents, going, "Look at this!" And they were watching it and laughing at how the number kept going up like crazy. It was really mind blowing experience. Very grateful for it. I really am. It's
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to like right place, right time, right? But really lucky to be in that position to get to experience that, and for people to be willing to trust what we were saying and trying to do.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And today, actually the third Kickstarter ended today as well, and you've
Mm,
raised over $600,000 on that one too, which is again no small amount. You must be really
yes,
happy. So that's
very happy with that. Yeah,
180 paints now in the
yes,
collection.
yeah.
What I want to know is who comes up with a name of all of them?
Oh, we do. So Roger and I, and we've got a chap with us now called Joe. He joined in with this recent batch, and yeah, we just sit around having a cup of tea, going through them one at a time, trying to come up with ideas for them. It's easy at first, but it starts getting quite difficult after a bit. You know,
Have
there's
there been
like,
any sort of that you just gone, no, Rog, just
oh yeah,
no?
yeah, we've all come out with some, and I don't say any of
Ah, got it. Well,
them.
that's that question marks off them. Right. Brilliant. I just wanted to touch back on some other stuff that you've been working on.
Mm,
The Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy.
mhm.
I am a member. Again, this isn't a
Ah,
paid promotion or nothing. Me and Milton really enjoy. I like the Star Wars Legion.
mm.
I think he likes watching Obi-Wan Kenobi being
Ooh.
painted.
We
Um,
did a Star Wars Legion model just yesterday, just filmed one. Going to be out in a
ah,
few weeks. Yeah.
Other stuff. Keep your eyes peeled on that one. For those that listen that are not involved or that know what it is, can you tell them a bit about it and why they should look into doing it? Like, who's it for?
So the Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy is a membership website that is committed and totally dedicated to breaking down barriers and helping people build hobby skills and confidence. So what it is a enormous archive essentially of painting tutorial videos that can be based upon various techniques, or they can be more case studies on a particular miniature. So if you're new to the hobby in particular, there's a whole course that's all about the fundamentals of miniature painting. That'll teach you through all the main techniques that you need to know and give examples and exercises and things so you can learn. And this is connected to your account. So you actually get called up a certificate when you finish it, which we're very proud of. We managed to figure out how to do that. But then we've got a section dedicated to particular techniques that range from just good key skills to quite advanced things. So there's like a bit of a flavor for everyone, depending on what place you are in your journey of
Hmm.
learning things. And then there's loads and loads and loads and loads of videos about painting models. And we particularly pride ourselves on working hard on large models, the big intimidating stuff.
Yeah.
So, for example, next week we're planning on filming Iona Scriptborn on his big dragon. And we recently did the Tomb King on the Bone Dragon. I think, these really big models that are expensive and, people are worried about messing up. We do a full step-by-step guide being as clear and concise as possible. And it's all about showing the technique and explaining it as easily as we can and with accommodation of using different kinds of paint. So we always pick which ones we think are the best one for the job, but it's always angled as in like we're going for a darker bone color. I'm using this one. And then on our website, we also have a translation document so you can translate to all the ranges if you want to. Each miniature comes with a gallery, so you can see in detail the finished things. So you can see how we painted, so you can see what details to pick out. And then beyond that, we also have other various support things. So we've got a forum, for example. We run competitions every month on the forum. We do product giveaways. So the last one was the big Bretonian Army box set that we sent out. So we're always doing loads and loads of stuff like this, but it's all angled at helping you build your skills in the hobby and getting those results that you've always wanted to get.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I've enjoyed watching a lot of the stuff like on my breaks on my dinner. Just put them on there and just listening to the videos. It is quite good. I like to have a model every so often by my desk and
Mm-hmm.
just to think, right, that's me doing that when I get home. It must be weird, like because for me, painting is how I relax, but that's your job. How do you relax? What do you do to sort of chill out?
Well, typically I'll paint stuff that I'm not working on at the time.
Hmm.
So it keeps it fresh for me. And I like to paint stuff because it keeps me learning new things and trying different ideas. So over my time at workshop, that meant I tended to paint historical miniatures whilst I was there, just to be a different palette effectively. Because you're right, you can overdo it and burn yourself out. And I very much jealously guard my time in deciding what I paint because I don't want to burn out on things.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's not been too much of an issue because the subjects that people want us to cover are often the big Warhammer figures. So all the cool stuff as it comes out, I get to paint anyway for work. So like I want to paint a Space Marine. I'm probably going to get to paint a Space Marine within the next few weeks. So
Yeah.
so yes, there's always that opportunity, and because we cover lots of subjects beyond just Warhammer nowadays, it's nice and varied as to what I get to do. But yeah, when it comes to my own thing, it has to be very much a thing that I want to do for my reasons. Usually it's different from what work wants. Of course, recently it's been Bretonians. I've been painting plenty of Bretonians. But yeah, there's all these other things I mentioned earlier. Yeah, they're all on my radar. Yeah, we'll see. And aside from that, I do reenactment during the summer months, Napoleonic reenactment, and that's a nice way to get away from things.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's nice to, at the weekend go for walks with my wife and our little dog. So yeah.
that's awesome. Were you quite into history as a youngster as well, or is it
Mm.
something you picked up through models?
No, I've always been interested in it, in particularly military history. I picked up my interest in Napoleonic stuff because of my dad, because he used to watch the Sharp TV series with me, and that appealed. I couldn't factor in why they're wearing these really bright uniforms and why they're all just standing there shooting at each other. But as you learn about the period, you get why they're doing that, and it becomes like a very interesting era in history. Um, but yeah, I've always been drawn to it. I think a lot of the armies I've collected, I like it when they have that slight historical flavor in the background. That helps grab my attention.
That's cool.
Mm.
So going back to the Duncan Rhodes Paint Academy and stuff, you've inspired countless number of painters. I think that's fair to say. But who inspired you when you were starting out, and also who inspires you at the moment?
Oof, well, when I was starting out, it was seeing the models in the cabinets in my local store, which was the Derby store. So there was a chap called Chris there who was just a full timer when I very first got into it when I was a kid. He actually sold my first box of miniatures, and it was seeing like models that people like him had painted. That just made me think, that's so cool. I wish I could do that, and I'll never be able to do that. Then when I joined the retail chain, it was my colleagues around me were better than me, and I learned a lot from them very quickly, and I found that very inspiring. That's where I met Chris Beach for the first time, and he taught me a lot of things as I was going along. And I've always found him very inspiring in the imagination that he approaches things in, and that he doesn't just have the models stamped out in the same way every time. He'll do things and little twists and little interesting takes and stuff that adds a new angle to it that makes things fresh. So I find that aspect very inspiring. Yeah.
That's cool. What was your typical day like when you were in Games Workshop?
Oh, well, I suppose it was early days with TV. We would have quite a bit of time to work on projects, and we would get to propose what things we'd cover in a video to our manager. And if we got the green light, it was up to us to then go and make it. And it would typically be filming a bit, then Roger taking that footage and editing it into the video whilst I painted the remaining detail, and then he'd come back and film the next bit, and then he'd go through and edit it whilst I painted that detail. And this turned out to be a very slow way of doing things. So it gradually evolved to the point where we'd shoot the whole video, and then he'd take away all the footage. And whilst he was editing it, I would then be preparing for the next video. So a normal video would take us usually about 3 days, I think it was. Usually, sometimes it go up to 2 weeks, depending on what the model was. Like Nagash was the first big one we did that took 2 weeks. Actually, no, we did an Imperial Knight, but that was more like a proof of concept thing at the time. And over time, we just became more and more efficient at it. But as Warhammer community grew, I started getting pulled in all kinds of directions. So around my last year there, I would do painting videos, but at the same time, Peachy was doing them, and later on, Nick Baton was also doing them. And there was only one desk to film in. There was a time when there was two painting desks, but it got reduced down to one. And Peachy being left-handed meant that all the camera setup had to be flipped for him. So there was quite a bit of time where I wasn't doing that, and I was doing other stuff like being in podcasts or helping on a set with something, or all sorts of odds and ends, or even random jobs that you you wouldn't think I'd be doing. So yeah, that last year or so, things were very. You have to pick a day, and what I was doing that day would be different from the next day and from the next day. It was quite bizarre. Nowadays, it's much more of a weekly routine, in that we film 3 days and then 2 days of admin and editing and preparing, and then the next week is 3 days filming and then 2 days of preparing. We just
Yeah,
kind of go in that routine each week.
that's cool. So when you're painting for pleasure, what's your process like then?
Well, it's changed a bit these last few years. So it used to be I had a painting desk in my apartment, and I would put on some DVD or something. I think we've all got like movies or TV shows you just have in the background, and it's more like comfort noise. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I had things like I put like say Gladiator on, or Troy, or a Friends season. Was having that running, or an audiobook. I managed to get through the Wheel of Time audiobooks through painting whilst listening to those, and I just happily paint away at many projects. Now these days, my wife has recently got into painting. I say recently, maybe year and a half, 2 years ago, she started painting with me, and it turns out she really likes it. So what we do is sit together now, and I'm not in the apartment anymore. I'm in the house now, and it's quite a small house, so we don't really have enough room for two desks. So we kind of share the space and take turns moving around a bit and stuff. So sometimes it's like the kitchen table, sometimes it's like this little fold-out portable table that I've got, and then I sit cross-legged and I paint there. And what we'll do is listen to podcasts together or music or something like that. So
Yeah,
it's quite new right now. I'm looking forward to moving and getting a proper desk where we can both have a big desk next to each other. That'd be
that'd
nice.
be cool.
That's the dream.
That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
I think people will be quite shocked seeing what my a normal weekday night painting area looks like, what they expect it to be versus what it actually is.
But right then we have to keep it as like a closely guarded secret, not to ruin the illusion.
Yes. Well, I would bet a crisp, shiny £5 note that your desk is bigger and more impressive than mine is at the moment.
I might be £5 richer in a minute. I'm not going to show you
Yeah,
on
I
here
advise you
now,
not to
but
take that bet.
yeah. I do feel like I'm on a plank of wood with some boxes stacked up, but it's like an IKEA kind of thing that we just bought during
Mm.
lockdown just to try and call together. Like in front of me now is my partner's desk for when we work.
Mm.
But it's currently full of Lego boxes and instructions as we try to deconstruct a lot of my son's Lego to make room on his desk for more. He's only 6.5 and he's got more Lego than I think I've eaten pizzas. That's a lot of pizzas. It's
Well, Lego's
ridiculous.
awesome. He's got taste. Hey, this reminds me of a bit off subject, I suppose, of wargaming, but have you ever heard of Brick Mania?
No,
No.
I'm not.
So I encountered them by chance when I was sent to Adepticon one year because they had a shop in Chicago in this shopping center right next to where the event was.
Yeah.
And Brickmania is a company that buys in Lego bricks and sells them on, but as custom kits, and they're done as realistic military kits.
Oh
Now
wow.
they're expensive because of the buy and sell on, so brace yourself when you look at the prices for them. But it's things like I'm going to do a Sherman tank, and it's like a realistic Sherman tank with moving Caterpillar tracks and stuff, or a Spitfire, or a modern jet like an A10 Warthog or something like that. And they what I find really cool about them is they recycle and use parts in ways that you wouldn't expect. Like on the Spitfire, the front of the canopy glass was a set of goggles angled at such a way, and it looks like the canopy glass. And yeah,
Wow.
it's just yeah, I encourage people to go and take a look at that. Purely like even if it's just out of interest, just to
Yeah.
see because it's fascinating what people can make out of that stuff.
Yeah, we did Bricktastic 2 weeks ago on the weekend up in Grand Central
Mm,
in Manchester.
mm.
And some of the things that people have made custom stuff, it's so
Incredible, isn't it?
impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's so cool. And I'm so there with like a just a lump that's supposed to be a spaceship, and I'm like,
Hmm.
how have we done that?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, that guy's made an actual skyscraper with floors inside it and a working lift.
Yeah, out of one by one studs as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the people are brilliant. But just goes to show if you can see someone else is doing it, then it's achievable.
Yes.
It's a nice little reminder. I suppose like when you
Yeah.
see the miniatures that are being painted by the community, there's so many talented people out there.
Mm.
And I look at me and like my infancy and my little one, and he's just painting for pleasure, and I'm painting for pleasure as well. But I
Yeah,
look
just
at him
enjoy yourself.
thinking, one day
Hey,
I'll get
everyone
there too.
starts somewhere. I've
Indeed.
thankfully still got my first miniature, and I keep them as a reminder that everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah, my one's a space marine. I think everyone's is a space marine, really, isn't it?
Most people's is a Space Marine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which we actually went to the Stockport Warhammer shop with my
Mm,
little one just to do some. We just had a walk around the store, and
mm,
then we're invited to do some painting.
mm,
Booked him in for a session. He said, "Do you want to join in as well?" I was like, "Yep." So I was tempted. I had the choice of the Stormcast or a Space Marine, but
mm,
little one decided it was going to be Space Marines. So
mm.
that's what we did. So yeah, I've still got mine as well.
Yeah, keep
Yeah,
hold of that. You'll look back at one day and think, man, how how far I've come since then. Yeah, I encourage everyone to do the same. Keep your first miniature.
yeah. I think it's his as well. Like I like to see how he's sort of developing his sort of taste. There are some very colourful rainbow Stormcasts in our house. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, you're gonna be able to spot my mile off when I go into battle. Speaking of little ones, what is your best piece of advice for youngsters and young painters?
So my advice to youngsters, I think, is first of all not to get intimidated by what you see on social media, because the things that tend to rise to the top when you're looking through a feed are the things that are going to get the most likes and stuff. And that's always the most impressive, most incredible paint jobs. But that's not something that you should really measure yourself against, especially when you're starting, because what you're seeing there is a culmination of years of practice. Um, and throughout all the journey to that, there'll be lots of things going wrong, and it's just like its own experience bringing you to there. There's no reason why you can't do that sort of thing one day, maybe sooner than you think. So don't let it put you off. Um, you should focus on the things that you like and that you enjoy about the hobby. So things like miniatures you think are cool, go for those sorts of things. Don't worry about competitive or anything like that. Just have fun with them. And when it comes to the actual mechanics of the painting, there's a couple of real important things. And it's not down to what color you're using, and it's not really down to what brush you're using either. It's about the learning the motor control of how to hold things and how to move the brush. So you'll see when I'm painting, I'm always holding my hands together. I'm always bracing my hands against themselves. That's to minimize shakes, and I'll often lean on the table or have my elbows rest on the table, just to help myself be more steady and more under control. And a part of that is to make sure that you get the paint to the point where it does what you want it to do, which usually involves thinning it down with some water, getting it to the right consistency, and learning what that consistency is, what you're looking for. Because once you get that, it's like a sweet spot where it's not so runny that it just goes everywhere, but you don't want it really thick either. Once you get what you're looking for there, you can easily replicate that with any paint. So focus on those things, because once you've got that and you're suddenly painting neatly, everything builds on top of that. So all your highlighting techniques, all your fancy tricks, and any blending, any glazing, all these things are all based upon that core fundamental neatness. So yeah, really focus yourself there, and you'll surprise yourself with what you can do. I remember for me when it clicked, I was painting ultramarines, and I suddenly was able to paint. At the time, they had yellow shoulder pad rims. I was
Yeah.
suddenly able to do that without making mistakes, and things started opening up from there. So yeah. There's a lot to learn this hobby. You'll never learn all of it. There's always something new. But yeah, concentrate on those things to get started with, and you'll surprise yourself.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And I know we're on a bit of a time restraint today. I really appreciate you lending me this time as well, especially with the Kickstarter dropping as well.
Oh, thanks for
Um,
having me. It's
it's
always
a
really nice
pleasure.
to talk to people about hobby.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do.
Mm,
I really do enjoy talking to people about their passions
mm,
and what they enjoy. And I think the creative side of me loves this.
mm.
And maybe a bit too much to my wife's liking sometimes, but
Oh
um,
yeah, I can get away with it now that my wife's painted the miniatures too. But it used to be all my miniatures around the house, and now
mm.
it's all our miniatures, which is I can
is
get
she,
away with it now.
is she Bretonians as well, or does she have her own?
She has painted some Bretonians. She actually is like Lord. She likes Lord of the Rings most. She loves
Nice.
Middle Earth,
Yeah.
and so she's been systematically working her way through all the evil armies. But the Old World came out, and she saw how excited I was for the return of my beloved Bretonians, and I started painting some up. And she asked if she could have a go, and she was saying to me like one morning at breakfast, "I can see why you like them so much. They're not over the top detailed, but there's so much character in them, and they're clearly like they've got this weird fantasy vibe with them, but because of what they're based upon, I get what they're about and what's going on and things. She started looking at other Warhammer Fantasy factions, so we'll see if she bites the bullet, so to speak, and goes and collect something. I think she'd really enjoy doing vampire counts. I think she
Mm,
tends to like the evil things,
yeah.
but yeah,
That's
we'll
good.
see.
Interesting. Last
Yeah.
one for me before we go. What does the
Hmm.
future hold for Duncan Rhodes? Is it more paints, brushes, model lines, anything in the pipeline?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I don't think I can really say
That's okay.
specifically, but we do have things in motion and things in mind, exciting things that people will be seeing this year coming from us. So you can expect there to be more stuff like paints, hobby products, more things like that. But we've got some other ideas around that. And on the website, we're planning on adding more courses onto it on different subjects. We've got some really exciting ones in mind for that. We were discussing one just yesterday. I think it's going to be loads of fun. It'll be like a longer format thing that we'll film over a few weeks. And yeah, we've got some other cool ideas that we want to add onto the membership offering. It's like cool stuff, like entertainment stuff that you can enjoy, like listening to whilst you paint things. But yeah, watch this space. We'll definitely be announcing all this in our social media
Brilliant. And where can the good people find you? If you're one of the people that out there
chat.
that are not following Duncan or know where to find the
Oh,
Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy, where can they
this
find
is
it?
that's the bit I hate because I got to say our website's duncanroads.com. Uh, I insist. Like this was Roger's idea, right? I was not comfortable with calling the website that, but he had his reasons and he argued me around. Yeah, that's where the membership website is, and it's $3.99 a month for which you get access to everything. There's no tiers or anything like that. There's well over 300 videos. I think it's like over 350 now, but lots and lots of stuff to get your teeth into. On social media, on Instagram, we are on Duncan J Rhodes, and on Facebook, we're the Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy, and we're on YouTube as well, which is the Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy. And if you're interested in seeing what our offer is like, check out our YouTube channel because we put up videos there every 2 weeks or so that are examples of what we do on the website. So still a full video on the YouTube thing, but on our website is vastly more of that on
Yeah.
all sorts of subjects.
I'll make sure I leave all the links in the title, in the description as well. I'm not putting all in the title. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, long title.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Duncan, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks
Enjoy
for
the
having
rest of
me.
your evening.
You too.